Hey there everyone, welcome back. Today I have 5 thrifted trash to treasure Halloween DIYs that are fun, easy, and affordable. If you're new here and you like home decor and DIYs on a budget, stick around by hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications so you never miss out on a new video. All right, let's get into the DIYs. For this DIY, I'm going to use this thrifted book that I found at the thrift store for a couple dollars. It was a book that the library discarded, so I'm just going to go ahead and put it to good use. I'm going to cut the cover off of it with an X-Acto knife. I just ran it down the spine on the back and the front of the books, and then it pulled right off. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a template out of this cardboard. So I just kind of used the book to make sure that my template was the right size. And I'm going to do like a half circle because I'm going to make a pumpkin out of this book. I know probably you guys have seen this done before, and I've never done it before, so I wanted to give it a shot. So I just traced my template onto the book and used the straight edge of the template to the straight edge of the spine. And then I just used regular scissors and cut probably about 20-25 pages at a time around where I traced out the template. And then that part of the pages just come off. The pages cut pretty easily as long as you have some sharp scissors. And then they just pull right off of the spine at the ends. So I just did this to the entire book, and it was a little time consuming, but I just turned on a movie and went to town on it. As you can see here, when you're all done, if you just spread the book open, it turns into a sphere or a pumpkin. So all I did was split the book in half, and then I glued the spine together with some hot glue. And then I just picked up the book, and then I kind of just creased the pages and bent the book around in a circle just to get the look that I wanted. I hot glued some pages together just sporadically, ones that were maybe too separated, so that way I got more of a rounded look to my pumpkin and there wasn't a lot of gaps and holes. So I just kept bending it and gluing the pages together until I got it the shape that I wanted. Next, I needed to make a stem for my pumpkin, so I just used a cinnamon stick that I had and I hot glued it to the top. And then I wanted to make some little curly cues for my pumpkin as well. So I took this wired twine and then I just wrapped it around the stem or the cinnamon stick. Then I took it off and I used a paintbrush and wrapped those ends around the paintbrush. I spiraled them so that way it gave more of a curly cue look to what was around the pumpkin, kind of like vines. So then I just placed that back on to my cinnamon stick like so. Next, I decided to add some ribbon, so I took just this satin ribbon from Dollar Tree that was a cream color, and I just tied a normal regular bow around the cinnamon stick, just to make it look more pretty and elegant, I guess. I just tied a regular bow around it and then cut the ends to where I liked it. Next, I decided to add a face to my pumpkin and make it a jack-o'-lantern. I've never seen anybody do this with the book before, so I thought I'd give it a shot. I had some black burlap on hand, so I went ahead and cut out 3 triangles for the eyes and the nose. And then I took a piece and used some chalk and just drew out a mouth for my pumpkin and cut that out. And then to glue this down, I was wondering if this was going to work, but I just added just a little dab of hot glue to each corner of the mouth. And then I glued that to the pages along the pumpkin, as you can see here. And then I took the burlap that was touching the pages in between and kind of hot glued that down, and it worked out really good. Then I took the eyes, one of the triangles, and just put a little dab of hot glue on each corner of the or each point of the triangle, and again just glue that to the pages that the points stuck to. And then I did the same thing for the nose as well, except for I just did a line down the middle, and it turned out so cute. I'm so glad I ended up doing this DIY. I love how it turned out. I think it just looks so natural and organic looking and just kind of beautiful and elegant for Halloween. I definitely think this was a fun and easy and affordable project to do. Since the book pumpkin DIY turned out so well, I decided to do something else with another book. And I just had this book lying around that I thrifted a while back, and it didn't have an actual cover on it, so it's gonna work out perfectly. I took another piece of cardboard and drew out half of what a ghost shape would be. So I just made a ghost, and then I drew one eye, and I cut that ghost out. And for the eye, I used an X-Acto knife to cut around the eye hole. And then I did the same thing like I did with the pumpkin. I just lined up the ghost template with the spine of the book and traced it, and then I just cut around what I traced with some scissors. And again, you don't want to do too many pages because if you do too many pages, it'll be too hard to cut out. So about 20 to 25 is what my limit was. And then I used the X-Acto knife for the eye hole and just cut a circle. And I did this to the entire book like I did the pumpkin, and it was turning out really good. I was loving it. So I kept going until I got it all cut out. This book was actually a lot longer than the pumpkin book, so this one took a little bit longer of time. So keep that in mind when you're picking out a book to cut out, how many pages it has, because the more pages it has, the longer it's going to take you to cut it out. But that's okay. Again, I turned on a movie and went to town on it. So once I got it all cut out, this is how it was looking, and I needed to figure out how I wanted to display it. So again, I'm going to fold it in half and hot glue that spine together. You can see that for some reason it wasn't even at the top or the bottom, but it still worked out. It set up perfectly fine, and it still looked good. So anyways, after I glued the spine together, I kept the book open on the front side so that way you can see the ghost. Because if you do it all the way around, it won't look like a ghost like you did with the pumpkin. So I kept the front side flat, and then I just went and lifted the pages around the back side and hot glued those together to make it stand up and make it look more 3D. And then I wanted this book to look a little bit more old and weathered, so I brewed a cup of black tea, and I just went and stained the pages with the black tea. I just covered it all and got it all wet and just made it look old. And then I did take my heat gun and I went around and dried the pages just to make it dry a little bit quicker. And then also when I did that, because the heat gun's so hot, it did burn the edges of the pages a little bit, so it gave that extra spooky look. And I love how this ghost turned out. It looks just as good as the pumpkin, and I think it's super adorable and easy for Halloween. I found this cauldron at a garage sale for only $4. It is a little beat up. It doesn't have the legs on it anymore, and it's pretty tarnished, but I like the old look to it, so I'm just going to clean it up, and I'm not going to paint it or change anything about it because I like that organic feel about it. But I am going to show you how I'm going to style it. So what I'm going to do is, it does have holes in it, so it can't hold water. So I used a couple wooden plaques from Dollar Tree, and then I put a bowl of water on top of that to lift it up a little bit, and then added a bubbler and a mister to that. And then I'm gonna put this in my fireplace. We do use this, well, we don't use this fireplace. It is working, but we don't use it. So I'm gonna hang it up in here. I think it's gonna look pretty cool. So I'm gonna add these battery operated orange lights from Dollar Tree to the wood. so that way it lights up. And then to hang my cauldron, I just went out to the yard and got a stick, and I just slid it through the little latch there. I don't know what you call that, but it works perfectly to have somewhere to hang this cauldron. So I just slid it on to the piece of wood, and it hangs perfectly in the fireplace. And then all I'm gonna do is just add that wood and the water and the bubbler back to the cauldron. And I think this is pretty cool. It gives a pretty cool spooky look for Halloween, and it's safe because it's all just battery operated, except for the bubbler. It does plug in, but I love how this turned out, and it looks like I'm brewing something up in my fireplace for Halloween. I picked up this painting at a garage sale for only 25 cents. So I thought it would be perfect to add a little ghostly touch for Halloween too. So basically all I did was get out my acrylic paints and a little paintbrush, and I added a couple ghosts to the painting. Really, this is so easy. You don't have to know how to paint to do this. You just have to have fun with it. So I added a couple ghosts with just some white acrylic paint, and you want to layer the paint on. So you kind of want to like put a layer on, let it dry for a little bit, but not all the way dry, and then come back to it and layer some more paint on, so that way it kind of matches the painting, at least for this painting. I did do another one of these paintings. I didn't film it with more of a flat background, and it worked out perfectly the same way I did this painting. So I don't really think it matters. I went ahead and added a couple black bats to the sky. And you could really add anything to these paintings to make them more spooky. I was lucky with this painting because it already had kind of fall colors in it with the leaves and stuff. So I didn't really have to like change anything like that. So I just added the ghosts and the bats. And then here I'm adding a moon. And for this, I basically just mixed white and black paint to make gray. And I drew a circle with that paint, and then I just kept adding on black paint and white paint and kind of mixing it together. And then I needed like kind of like a halo around the moon to make it look like it was glowing. So then I blended the black paint and the moon that I was doing with some white paint around it, and I added some yellow around it. And I just kept blending it and adding that yellow and that white and maybe a little more black until I blended it all out and it didn't look like I just painted a circle on the painting. So it kind of just made everything kind of blend together, and it gave this moon shape, but also like gave a little halo around it. And then I did add some yellow to the bottom of it, kind of like it was shining down. And then I went back to the ghosts, and here I'm adding a second layer of white to my ghosts to get that all set up there. And then I went ahead and decided to add some pumpkins with just some orange acrylic paint. I just kind of painted out the pumpkin shapes, and then again I came back and added some more orange. I added a little bit more like some black to it, some brown to it to give it a little bit more dimension. And here I am adding some like grayish and some black to the ghosts just to give them a little bit more dimension as well. And then I did have like this little fan brush, and it kind of helped to like blend the paint out a little bit better. So I'd paint it, and then I kind of take the fan brush and glide it across it. And that worked out pretty good. So you just kind of have to play around with it and have fun, and don't be scared of messing it up, especially with this painting since it was only 25 cents. I didn't think I could really do anything wrong with it. So I added little eyes to my ghosts, and here I'm coming back with the orange paint and adding some more orange to the pumpkins. I added a little bit of shadow to the bottoms of my pumpkins and my ghosts as well, just to kind of bring that depth and dimension in. I completely, like I said, don't know how to paint, don't understand the world of, professional painters and artists and things like that. I'm just doing what I feel like looks good, and I'm just trying to match kind of what the shadows already are on the painting. So I think that it looks pretty good the way it is. I just added some stems to my pumpkins with a little bit of brown paint. And again, here I'm adding the shadows to the ghosts just to kind of blend everything in. And I think it turned out great. It is just looks like a spooky vintage old painting, and can't go wrong for 25 cents changing this up and adding a little spookiness to it for Halloween. It looks great. This last DIY, I actually had this broom from last year. It's one of the cinnamon brooms, and it doesn't smell anymore. So instead of just throwing it away, I'm gonna go ahead and revamp it. So I went ahead and bought some dried florals off of Amazon. That's just pampas grass, eucalyptus, and lavender. And I'm gonna go ahead and place that onto the broom, and it's gonna smell amazing. So I just kind of took the bundles apart a little bit. I left the one pampas grass together and the eucalyptus, and then I kind of tied that with a piece of twine. And now I'm just taking the pieces and just shoving them in the broom where I see fit. I'm just kind of playing around with it. It's a fun little project. This would be fun to do for like a craft night or something. And you definitely can get 2 brooms out of one bundle from Amazon out of these flowers. So I just separated them. I probably put a little more in this than I typically would have, but I was just having fun playing around with it. Once I got it the way I liked it, I took the twine and just continued to wrap that around there, making it tight so that all of those dried florals would stay put on the broom that weren't tucked into the broom. A lot of them were tucked in, but some of them were out, like the eucalyptus and some of the pampas grass. So once I got that tied off, then I came back in and tied another piece of twine. I double knotted that. I also got some dried orange slices off of Amazon. You can definitely dry your own. I didn't have time and I didn't have any oranges, so I went ahead and bought them. And I can use them for different projects. So I just took a couple out and I just punctured a little hole in one of the slices and tied that to the piece of twine. I did it to another piece and tied that off and then cut the excess twine. Now all I'm gonna do is take some of this velvet brown ribbon that I got from Amazon as well, and I'm just going to hot glue some of it, and then I'm gonna wrap it around where you can see the branches that I put the dried florals on. So that way it covers it up, makes it look nicer. I just wound the ribbon to the top of where the branches were, and then I wound it back down to the bottom, and then I hot glued the piece and cut the ribbon off. And then I came back in with some more of that ribbon and tied just a simple little bow to hang down off of the broom. I cut the excess ribbon off the bottom, and I think this turned out so pretty, and it's so like cottagecore, witchy vibes. I love how it looks, and it smells amazing with the lavender and the eucalyptus and the dried oranges. So you can't go wrong with revamping an old cinnamon broom to this. Thank you guys so much for watching this week. I hope you enjoyed these thrifted DIYs. Make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.